This is Lady Anne, owner of KPNL Radio and hostess of the Caravan Library of Lore, and I support Tessa. As an experiencer myself, I have filed my own reports with them, and the professionalism and heart they have shown my case goes above and beyond. If you have had an experience, I cannot recommend Tessa enough.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, Winston Zedmore from Ghostbusters. I want to let you know that Ryan Stacy, he's created the Experiencer Support Association, TESA. You can check them out at www.tesacan.org. Now, they investigate paranormal, UFO, and provide support to experiencers. But you can check them out at, like I said, www.tesacan.org and see for yourself if they're really Ghostbusters. I can tell you this, they are a non-profit organization. Good luck, have fun, and keep it busted.
Good evening. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association. Tessa is a UFO, paranormal, and paracryptid investigation association. We investigate everything belonging to the global phenomenon linked to highly strange and unexplained experiences. We also connect experiencers with other experiencers, creating a safe, positive environment to engage and discuss this phenomenon without judgment, criticism, or retribution. From the land of the white rolling sands on the southeasterly tip of Georgian Bay, to all of you listening around the world, as we simulcast live on KPNL Radio, we salute you. If you want to go back and listen to our previous episodes, go to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to be instantly notified when we are live, not only for these episodes, but every single element Tessa has to offer. On our website, tessacan.org, we have something for everyone. We have support for experiencers, data for independent researchers, and places to advertise for professional partners.
Hello, everybody. Today is Thursday, August 12th, 2021, and I, Ryan Stacy, am your host this evening. For those who don't know, I am a licensed private investigator, a citizen journalist, and the director of investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Remember to super chat, just click the $ next to your name in the comment box. All donations go back into the mission, and for that, we thank you. If you're catching this on the replay, please consider becoming a member and unlock bonus content, including behind the scenes and extended footage on new project developments, including investigations, which are coming soon. Just click the big blue button that says join. Our guest tonight for season 3, episode 27 is John Russell. John Russell has been an internationally known professional psychic for almost half a century. Working with clients around the world, he also has been a featured guest on many popular radio shows and recently filmed a TV pilot for the History Channel in which he psychically explored the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. He also has been an avid motorcyclist for over 50 years when he's not chasing ghosts around the country on his motorcycle. John enjoys reading. Pardon me. Sorry, my cat interrupted me. So when he's not touring around the country on his motorcycle, John enjoys reading, painting, making photographs, gardening, target shooting, and fancies himself a fair chess player. Interesting. All right, John, put on your tinfoil hat. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, Ryan, it's great to be here. I appreciate you having me. I got my tinfoil hat on. Let's go.
Let's go right on. So we're gonna kick the night off with the icebreaker from Tim, the Demon Guy Morrison. Let me get his little intro up here. Where is it? Right on here. So the way this works, if you guys are new to this channel, Tim, the Demon Guy Morrison, will give me an icebreaker question. I am going to read this live for the first time, and we're gonna get the show going right here. So, all right, so you can find Tim, the Demon Guy Morrison, at the Demon Guy on Facebook and Demon Guy Canada on Twitter. All right, so what do you have for us today, Timmy? His question is, if you could go back and uninvent something, what invention would you erase from history?
The atomic bomb.
Okay, yeah, well that's a good one.
Yeah.
That would change.
That
would change quite a lot.
Yeah, you know, the thing when we first tested the atomic bomb, it's a matter of record that scientists did not know for a certainty that the chain reaction would go on forever and burn up the universe as we know it. And they decided to do it anyways. And after the development of the atomic bomb, the nuclear bombs, everything that we have now, storing the waste from these bombs contaminates the soil and the water where they're stored for a minimum of 10,000 years. Think about that. We have junk scattered around this planet that renders the soil and the water unusable for 10,000 years. So if I could uninvent anything, it would be the atomic bomb.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that because I can't think of anything that would be better than that. I mean,
Yeah.
other than religion, it's not
Yeah,
really.
well, yeah, if we could uninvent religion, that'd be good too. But at least I can ignore my next door neighbor, but the atomic waste I can't ignore.
Yeah, no, that's true. True for that. All right, well, let's thank you, Tim. Thank you for that. That was a good question. Nobody got hurt.
Good question. I like that. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Okay, so let's get into it. So, how did this all start? Like, what was your first experience on anything within UFO, paranormal, psychic? Like, what was your first one?
Well, the first one happened when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
And I was sound asleep in my bedroom, and my parents had left a nightlight on in the hallway so I could see if I need to get up at night. And I woke up wide awake. I mean, no grogginess, no drowsiness, just all of a sudden in the middle of the night, I'm totally, completely wide awake. And I thought, well, this is really weird. And I was like trying to hear if a sound woke me or something, if there was some noise, and everything was quiet, didn't hear anything. So I raised up on my elbows in bed, just to kind of look around the room. And as I looked down, my bedroom door was open. As I looked down the hallway in the nightlight glow, I could see this elderly black gentleman peering around the doorway in the hallway. And I screamed bloody murder because we're a white family. We didn't have anyone black living with us. And my assumption was that someone had broken in, had entered the house. And as I screamed, he walked around the doorway into the hallway, came down the hall toward the bedroom, locking eyes with me. And he was every bit as solid as you or I, Ryan. He wasn't misty, he wasn't translucent, wasn't transparent. He was absolutely, totally, completely solid. He had white hair, close cropped white hair, white mustache. So I knew he was elderly. He had on a red flannel shirt. He had on khaki pants, a black belt, black shoes. And like I say, every bit as solid as you or I sitting here right now. And I screamed bloody murder again. And when I did, my parents came running and he began to vanish. He then began to become transparent and he began to vanish until he was gone. And my parents got in there and they were trying to tell me that there was nobody in the house. I hadn't seen anything. I'd watched too much TV. I'd had a nightmare, whatever. And I knew better. And my fear was so strong that my dad actually went through the house, checked all the doors and windows to make sure they were locked and secure, and they were. He actually opened up all the closets and checked under all the beds and checked everything out. And of course, everything was secure. And they were just trying to tell me it was just a bad dream, go back to sleep. And I knew better. I knew I had seen my first ghost. I didn't know how to define it that exactly at the age of 5, but I knew I had seen my first ghost. And when this gentleman came, he came to open up the portal for me to experience what has become now over 1,000 physical paranormal manifestations that I've experienced in my life. These are not things I experience in meditation. I don't dream them. I don't hallucinate them. I don't envision them. These occur on the physical realm. We have photographs. We have video. We have audio. There have been multiple times that other people have witnessed their occurrence on the physical realm. So that opened up the portal to the other side. And at the same time, then he also opened up my psychic gift. And I became aware of that shortly after the experience as well. And the way that occurred was I was about between, go ahead.
I was just going to ask how old you were when you got the psychic, you discovered the psychic gift.
Well, that was between 5 and 6 then, right around there between 5 and 6. And I was out in the backyard playing with a toy, and this car pulled into the driveway that I didn't recognize. And so I went running in the house, and I got my mom and dad, and I said, Mom, Dad, there's some people in the driveway. I don't know who they are. And they said, okay, we'll come out and look. So they came out and said, oh, those are friends of ours. So they walked out to the driveway as the people were getting out of their car, and they were all standing outside greeting each other and talking. And I was standing there playing with my toy, kind of eavesdropping. And as they were conversing, I just walked up into their midst, and I said, you people have just been on vacation. And I said, you took that car that's sitting in our driveway. But I said, you have kids, you have 2 kids, and you took them with you. You don't have them with you today, but you had 2 kids, and you took them with you in that car, and you went on vacation, and you stayed at this hotel, and it was a couple of stories high, and it looked like this in the front, and there were trees in front that were shaped like this and looked like this. And then I described the pool area in the back and so on and so forth. Well, the woman, I will never forget the expression on her face, Ryan. She was sitting there, standing there, staring at me with her eyes getting bigger and bigger and bigger. She looked at me like I had cobras coming out of my nose or something. Oh, wow. And she looked at my parents and she said, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my parents were like, well, and they were just kind of dumbfounded, didn't know how to respond. And she says, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my mother said, well, kids and their imaginations, you know how kids are. She said, imagination, she said, that's what we were coming over to tell you is about this vacation that we just took. And we took our car, we took our 2 kids, we stayed at this hotel that was exactly like John described. How in the hell is that possible? How could he possibly have done this? And my mother was like, John, go play. And I was like, yes, ma'am. Nice to meet you folks. And so I went off. And so then that was when I became aware that I had that psychic gift.
So would that be like, how would you describe that type of psychic ability in that moment? Is that mind reading, or is that precognition? Is that because it already had happened, right? Right.
So it was like a vision I was getting. I could see clearly everything they had done, where they had been, and I could see all the details of it there. And it came to me kind of like, it's a bad description. Anytime you ask a psychic that really has a gift to describe how it works, there's always a really bad, really poor, incomplete description because you grasp at straws. But it was kind of like seeing a movie in my head in a way, is the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Visualization, the visual display.
Right.
So
that was when I became aware that everything was going on, and I connected it. I realized that the old black gentleman had come to do all that and to awaken the gift. And subsequent to that time, and all these years, I'm 67 now, so I've been around the block a few times. And in all these experiences, I have never been scared again. I've been startled a few times, sure, like everybody is, but I have never been scared again after that. It's been a really amazing ride. And I've been able to help a lot of people experience a lot of really neat things that convince me of the reality of the paranormal realm of the other side and how we can interact it to help ourselves.
Were those the only 2 experiences you've had in your life? Like, what happened after 6?
Oh, then what happened after 6 was 1,000 experiences more. Appearances, disappearances, UFOs, ghosts, healings, telekinesis, you name it. And these have gone on now, like I say, for all these years.
What is your most, let's start with UFO. What was your most moving
Oh my.
fact, like best piece of evidence, or circumstantial, if you will, but like best, most convincing UFO event? And how old were you when that happened?
This is a good story. I'm glad you asked that, Ryan.
Okay.
I was close to, I guess I was around 20 years old, and I had already been reading professionally for a couple of years by then. And I had had this plethora, this avalanche of paranormal experiences. So I absolutely knew the other side was real. I knew the psychic and paranormal realm was real. I did not believe in UFOs. And I had read the literature. I had seen people interviewed. I had read the magazines, and I was like, no, 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 I ain't buying it. Don't believe it. So, and this is where I kind of have to tie in, possibly, and not for a certainty, but possibly the paranormal with UFOs. Um, I was living in West Texas. I grew up in West Texas, and we were at the tip end of Tornado Alley. So familiar with all kinds of severe thunderstorms, bad hail, softball size hail, all that kind of thing, tornadoes. Um, so I was at this place, and my car was in the parking lot across the street, little narrow 2-lane street. I could see my car in the parking lot when I came out the door. And when I opened the door to come out, the first thing that hits me in the face is this blast of wind. And I look up, and it's overcast and the clouds are dark. And I was like, oh, wow, here we are. We're in for one of our infamous storms. So I look over at my car, and I think, well, thankfully I only have a little short way to run to get to my car, and it's not raining yet. And as I look over to my car, down in the parking lot, touching the parking lot, is this column of cloud coming from the clouds up above, this column of cloud coming down and resting by my car in the parking lot. So I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, okay. And I've seen all kinds of bizarre weather manifestations growing up in West Texas, but I've never seen anything like this. And as I watch it, it's kind of whirling and churning and all this. And from within the cloud, a globule of glowing color will come out and then recede back in. From the top to the bottom of this cloud, all these globules are coming out and then receding back in. And they're red, and they're orange, and they're yellow, and they're green, and they're purple and blue, like the colors of the rainbow. So I'm looking at this, Ryan, and I'm thinking, okay, here I am. I'm this young man. I've gone nuts. I'm hallucinating. That this is it. If I can get to my car, I'm just going to go to the hospital, check myself in. And as I continue to watch this thing, I notice another bizarre phenomenon, and that's all the debris down in the parking lot around the bottom of this cloud should be swirling around or blowing around or moving, and it's perfectly still. It's not affected by the cloud. I'm like, well, this is really crazy. So I'm looking at this cloud, and I have this really ridiculous urge to walk toward the cloud. So I do. And as I move a few steps forward, it moves forward towards me in the parking lot. And I stop, and it stops. I back up, it backs up. So I repeat that a couple more times with the same results. And I'm back up by the door, and the door opens, whacks me in the back. And this buddy of mine comes out, and he goes, oh, geez, I'm sorry. What are you doing standing so close to the door? And without waiting for me to answer, he looks up the clouds. He goes, oh, boy, it looks like we're in for it, huh? And then he looks over the parking lot, and he goes, what in the world is that? And I'm like, yay, I'm not crazy, because he sees it too. So I said, watch this. So I walk toward it, and it advances toward me. And I back up, and it backs up. And I do that a couple of more times. I'll look at him. I say, isn't that the weirdest thing you've ever seen? He looks at me like I'm the weirdest thing he's ever seen. He's like, bye. He's out of there. He's like freaked out. And his car's parked the other way, so he goes. So I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I know it's real, but here I'm alone with this thing. What in the world is it? What do I do? So all of a sudden, it sucks back up into the clouds above, and they start to move over. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I run for my car, get in my car, and I back out. And I'm like, what in God's name have I just seen? And as I'm driving along, and I know the town all over like the back of my hand, literally. So I know everywhere I'm at on the streets. And as I'm driving along, it begins to rain. And this is not everything is bigger in Texas story. I mean, in Texas, it can rain in 20 minutes. It'll flood your lawn. It'll flood the underpasses. It'll flood streets. So I'm used to the heavy rain there, but this rain starts to come down, and it increases, and I turn my headlights on, I turn my wipers on high, and it keeps coming, and it gets to the point that I literally can see no further past the hood of my car than 2 feet past the hood of my car. That's with my headlights on, the wipers on full. And there's cars angle parked on the street. I can't see them. And I almost hit the person in front of me. We come to a red light and I almost hit them. The person behind me almost hits me because we just can't see each other. The rain is that hard. And it just pitch dark because of the rain.
Right.
So there was a Sears Roebuck store there, and the back of it had a parking lot that faced the street that I knew I was on. And so I said, okay, if I can just somehow make it to that parking lot without hitting anybody or anybody hitting me, I'll park however skewed I can, jump out. I know I'll be soaking wet, but I'll go in the store. And they had one of the best sporting goods departments on the planet. And I said, I'll go downstairs and just gander at the sporting goods till the storm passes and I'll drive home. I didn't care about getting wet. I cared about getting in a wreck because you can't see. So I'm poking along. I'm trying to see the cars that are angle parked. I can't see the tail end of the cars sticking out of the parking spaces that are angle parked. I can barely see the person in front of me. I can just barely pick up the headlights of the person behind me. And I'm like in a panic here. It's like, this is crazy. This is ridiculous. And so I've grabbed the steering wheel. I lean over. I had bench seats in my car, big old Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser station wagon. God, I love that thing. And I leaned over as far as I could toward the passenger window to try and see where the cars are angle parked. And as I'm leaned over that way, now with that small amount of visibility and with the rain coming down that hard, in 1 second, count it, 1001, it's gone. No mist coming down, no moisture, no rain, no nothing. It's just gone. It's just stopped entirely and totally and completely. And full visibility is returned. It's still overcast, still cloudy, but full visibility. I can see as far down the road as I want to either way, see all around me. And I'm like, what in God's name is this? Because that's incredibly unusual behavior. So I reach up, turn my wipers off. There's not even a mist hitting the windshield. And I'm trying to gather my senses and think, what in God's name is going on here? And about that time, the people that are coming in the opposite direction toward us start swerving into our lane and almost hitting the cars that are in front of me. And people are honking. People are starting to yell. People are rolling down their car windows and pointing up at the sky. Some people are throwing open their car doors and leaving them open and pointing up. And I'm like, everybody's gone nuts. What in the world? And then in my mind, growing up in West Texas, are like, oh my God, I know what they're pointing at. It's like an F5 tornado, right? They're just seeing this thing. That's why everything stopped and got still, and we're fixing to get wiped off the map. So I look up where they're pointing, and over the rear of the Sears building there, maybe about 30 to 50 feet above the building, there's this solid metallic silver UFO about 30 to 50 feet in diameter, hovering there over the rear of the Sears building. No smoke, no flame, no sound, no nothing, just hovering there. And that's what everybody has been pointing at and freaking out about, and what I did not believe in. Brian, I literally did a cartoon eye rub. I literally did a cartoon eye rub, look back up, and it's still there. And I'm like, oh my God. And I start to open the door to get out so I can see it better. And as I reach for the door handle, the clouds behind the UFO come down low behind it and just cover it over. And as they start to cover it over, it just barely perceptibly moves our direction just a little bit. And the clouds cover it over. And the second the clouds cover the UFO over, the rain's back in full intensity immediately, just like it never stopped. So there was this guy in front of me, and I said, I don't care if I hit him at this point. I can't believe what I've seen. All these witnesses saw it before I did. And I just like, I don't care if I hit this guy. I'm going to follow this guy. He pulled into the parking lot, fortunately, the Sears parking lot. And he parked, I parked. He jumped out and ran. I jumped out and ran. Rain was coming down so hard it hurt. I was having to shield my eyes to run. And we got in there, and he was standing inside the vestibule. They had a little airlock there, and the basement went downstairs, and they had one of those mats you wipe your feet on. And he was standing there, and just his head down, and just standing there dripping water. And I remember he wore glasses. I didn't then, and his glasses were beaded with water. He hadn't even wiped them off. And I walked around in front of him, and it took him a second to realize anybody was standing there. And I looked at him, I said, excuse me, man, but I said, did you just see what I just saw? And he said, yeah, but I damn sure ain't going to tell nobody. And he sidestepped me and walked on through the store. And that's when I had to change denominations. I had to say, okay, they are real. I've seen it in the presence of witnesses up close and personal in daylight, and don't know what it is, don't know who they are, don't know, can't formulate any theories I can hang my hat on, but by God, they're there. And so that was my introduction to believing in UFOs, and I've had several experiences since then, including an interactive one.
Okay.
But that was the origin story for me, and that was when
That one is quite interesting because like I was making notes as we went through because like you have the psychic ability about you prior to this, right?
Mhm.
And the UFO phenomenon, I guess before I get into this, like, is that separate or is that connected? Now with your experience, did is there some connection with that, or is that a separate phenomenon in your realm?
To me it's still a separate thing. Like I say, there may be that paranormal component there because that cloud was an integral part of the
Mm-hmm.
experience then leading up to seeing the UFO. So that may be a connection. But in my mind, the psychic gift is entirely separate from the UFO phenomenon.
Yeah, because this may not be a psychic event, especially when you have other people witnessing it in the
Right.
material world, right? So then you
Right.
have weather manipulation, like strange proportions, and then you see something when the weather is calm,
Right.
and then it comes back. So what kind of technology do you think uh, would have had to have been available in order to manipulate the weather like that? Like, do you think the machine created the bad
Yeah.
weather and then stopped it,
Yeah.
or the bad weather existed and then it stopped it for a second and then it continued? What was normal?
I think the UFO manipulated it and caused it. That was my feeling at the time, was that it was responsible for that manifestation. And that, because like I say, I grew up in West Texas and every kind of storm condition you can imagine. I've seen every kind of weird weather there is, but I had never seen anything like that. And the only thing and I've never seen any weather like that since. So the only thing I could tie it to was the UFO had to be manipulating that weather and manipulating that manifestation. That's the only conclusion I could come to.
Was there any news coverage? Did anyone go to the papers at all, document that?
No, because back then, this was like right around the 70s, I think, somewhere around in there. And it's not, Ryan, honestly, it's not much better nowadays. It's just starting to get better, but it's not much better nowadays. But back then, you didn't talk about that. We were in the Bible Belt for one thing. You were made fun of, you were castigated, you were ostracized. You could lose your job. So people didn't report those things. People didn't talk about those things. And even among themselves, people were reluctant to talk to each other about what they had seen or what they had experienced. And I remember I had a good friend I went to school with, who was on the paper there. And several years down the road, he was interested in some type of paranormal thing and asked if anybody had any experience. So I told him about the UFO experience. And he made a little short mention of it in the paper. With a statement that I went to school with John. I've known him most of my life, and I believe he's absolutely, completely credible and wouldn't lie about such a thing. But that was as far as it went, and nobody, wanted to follow up on it. Nobody wanted to discuss it, and that was my experience back then, growing up as a psychic, and with all these manifestations were, either due to people growing up in the church. It was demonic. It was of the devil. They didn't want anything to do with it. Or they were just scared of it. They didn't want anything to do with it. And that's still, unfortunately, pretty much a prevailing attitude out there that I encountered.
Okay. What happened next?
Oh, man. Well, there's just so many experiences. When like I say, I started reading professionally at age 18. I began to, around age 12, it became really important to me to begin to investigate things paranormally, to do paranormal investigations, because I had this big search for the truth. I had begun to find out that there was a lot of phonies and con artists and frauds in the spiritual realm. in the psychic realm, and even in the church, even in the religious movements. And it was a big thing to me to say, okay, what works, what doesn't? People make a lot of claims, but let's find out if those claims hold water or not. And so I worked on that. I began to do that at about the age of 12. That's something I've continued my entire life and still do. Then at the age of 18, I started to read professionally, and it went on from there, and progressed to the point that I became internationally known. I've read for clients in over 40 countries. I still have a worldwide clientele I read for today. I have continued to do the paranormal investigations, and along the way, a nonstop barrage of paranormal experiences.
What has your research led you to believe today? So what are the answers? You didn't know anything at 12. You started getting into it. You had some experiences at a younger age. You started looking into it. You started learning things, and you had a UFO experience at 20. A bunch of things in between. What's going on? What is really happening?
Well, as far as what is really happening, we live with this other dimension, what I call the other side. And that's an umbrella term that it's the other side. And that's regardless of whether you're seeing a fairy or a deceased loved one or a spirit guide or an angel or whatever, that's the other side. And what we have to realize is that the other side does interact with our realm on a regular basis, and that we can attune ourselves to that for the purpose of making our lives better and making other people's lives better. One example of that is in my life, I can't tell you how many guardian angel experiences that I'm literally deemed guardian angel, not in a metaphorical sense, but in a literal sense, where they have saved my life, literally saved my life many times. And so that's a benefit of connecting with this other side. We have to understand that the beings on the other side, whoever they are and whatever they are, can see further down the road than we can and have more knowledge than we do and have better insights into things than we do. And so if we make that legitimate connection, then those beings can come to us and they can say, Aunt, don't do this right now. Wait, hang on. Or, you need to be involved in this right now. You need to do this right now. And if we will listen to that, it'll help us. The problem is we don't listen. We pray, we meditate, we cast spells, we do rituals, we say mantras, we do this, we do this, we do that. And we wonder why we don't get anywhere. We never shut the hell up and listen, and to listen, you get rid of your cell phone, you turn your cell phone off, you take the earbuds out, you get away from the TV, you get away from the radio, you get away from whatever, and preferably you sit out in nature where it's quiet and it's silent and you're away from everybody else. And you say, okay, God, universal mind, great spirit, whatever, I've asked you, I need input, I need guidance, I need help. What do I need to do? And then you shut up and you listen. And you may need to listen for 15 minutes. You may need to listen for half an hour, and nothing may come. And if it doesn't, then you do the same thing the next day, and you do the same thing the next day until the information comes. And then here's the big key. When the information comes, you act on it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example of, like in my first book, Writing with Ghost Angels and the Spirits of the Dead. I've been a biker since I was 15. On my current bike, I have almost 114,000 miles. So a serious rider all my life. And I'm a good rider. I'm very capable on the motorcycle, and I'm capable of riding safely at high speeds. So here in Florida, where I'm living now, I had scheduled myself a day off, and I was riding on one of the interstates here, and it was a beautiful day, blue sky, sunshine, gorgeous scenery. And I'm tooling along in the right lane at 70 miles an hour, which is the speed limit, which nobody goes, of course. And on this 3-lane interstate, in the right lane, which is supposed to be 70 miles per hour, people usually go 75, 80 or whatever. In the middle lane, people are going 90 and more. And in the left lane, all bets are off. People think they're training for the Daytona 500 there, right? Yeah. So I'm like, today I'm tooling along. I'm geezering it, right? I'm an old man geezer on the bike. I'm just having fun. I'm looking at the countryside. I'm riding along, just lollygagging and enjoying myself. And I hear this voice in my head, which I know very well because I've heard it all my entire life. and it says move into the far left lane. And I argue with the guys on the other side. And I've had all these experiences, all this guidance, all this protection, all this knowledge, and I'm arguing with them. I said, guys, to get into the far left lane, there's going to have to be a whole bunch of throttle on, throttle off, brake on, brake off, upshift, downshift, lean, weave, bob, swerve, and piss off a lot of drivers. And look, I'm happy here. I'm comfortable here. I'm just tooling along, looking at the scenery. John, move into the far left lane now. Bam. So I do, and I get over there, and I'm tooling along a lot faster than I want to be riding, way, way, way below my high-speed riding capability, but not what I want to be doing. I'm like, guys, what in the world? And about that time, in the right lane where I was, I don't know if somebody hit this guy or this guy hit somebody, but he is spinning around in his car. Our eyes actually make contact as he's spinning, and he winds up facing the wrong way on the interstate as cars are hitting him. Detritus is blowing across the interstate from the wreck, bumpers and hubcaps and junk blowing across in front of me, and I'm weaving my way through that, and cars are stopping and swerving and screeching and trying to keep from hitting each other. And so I look back to see if I need to stop and render aid, but people are already stopping, getting out, and I know they're going to call for the highway patrol, so everything will be okay. So I go on. But the point of it is, if I hadn't attuned myself to listen and then listened and then obeyed what I heard, I would have run right into that guy, and no telling how many cars would have hit me, and you and me wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation right now.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant, circumstance and coincidence too, right? Like, because I was thinking to myself, you made that good point about attuning yourself beforehand. Yeah. Thinking to myself, like, if the guardian angel, why didn't the guardian angel tell that person that caused that accident to fix or correct whatever they're doing, so you can continue to stay in the right lane and leave you alone, right? So so they were able to, this divine being of entity or whatever we want to call it, would have had the ability to see into the future or predict that cause of chain of events. And as you know, and obviously you were more important than those individuals.
Not more important, but more in tune.
That's a good point too.
The situation is, and this is what I tell people, this goes back to being in tune and then listening. The guy in front of me probably wasn't in tune, probably wasn't listening, And
so that makes sense too, because maybe the message is being broadcasted to everyone.
Yeah.
And just some people aren't listening.
And I tell people, I say, look, people say, well, you look at this fantastic experience you had. And then I was in a wreck, and I was like, yeah, what were you doing? Listening to your radio, sending a text message, talking with somebody on the phone. What were you doing? And the problem is, if somebody's got your ear, Ryan, and they're talking to you, and you're in a very serious, deep conversation, and I come up and I go, Ryan, you're probably not even going to hear me. And if I tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, Ryan, listen, wait a minute, John, I'm talking to this guy. I've got to, brush it off. And so the same thing with our guardian angels. They're trying to get through to us, and we're like, wait, I got to send this text. I got to scroll through. Oh, look, this cat picture, or, oh, I'm going to fight with my girlfriend. Oh, I got to go pick up the car. And
do you get any audio cues before the message is received, or is it just nothing and then the message and then you? Like, how do you step?
It's just nothing and then the message.
Okay. So how can you separate that from a divine message versus your own intuitive thought? How do you know that it's not yourself?
Experience.
Okay.
Yeah. I've studied this since I was a kid, and I've said, okay, what works, what doesn't? Where does it come from? How can I identify it and know what's what? How can I make it better? And that's what all of us have to do. We have to learn that, we have wishful thinking, we have optimism, we have our gut instinct, and then we have, our urges and whatever that we want to do and all this. So it's a process of learning to separate all that out and differentiate between all of that. And like when I tell my clients, it's like, I say, look, I'll give you a reading, that's great, but I can't be with you next week, next month, whatever. You have to develop your own gut instinct. You have to learn to listen to the other side for yourself. And the way that you do that is to get away from You know, boy, here's what I really want to happen. Okay, put that on the shelf and then go to the other side and go, what should happen? You know, and I'll give you an example there. I had been on radio for a number of years, and I really, really, really wanted to get on TV because there's a lot of nonsense out there. And I wanted to go on TV and have the chance to correct that and to convey to people, here's what the other side is really like. Here's how you can interact with it to your benefit, and get rid of the silly nonsense that was out there on these paranormal shows. And I just wanted to have that so bad. So I started interacting with the guys on the other side and praying about that and asking them for that. And so my wife and I had been on a cruise. And when we got back, there was a guy, you may remember him, I don't know, but people will remember probably. There was a guy, I don't remember if his name was, I don't know, John Hockenberry or David Hockenberry. His last name was Hockenberry. And he was a reporter for one of the news magazine shows, 48 Hours or one of those. He was in a wheelchair. And so when we came back, I was going through my emails, and there was an email from Hockenberry. And he was like, I want to interview you for 48 Hours or whatever he was on. I was like, oh my God. And I called my wife. I said, look, this is it. This is it. And what I've been asking for, what I've been hoping for. And so my wife comes in, she looks at it. She's like all excited. She's like, oh my God, here it is. This is it. This is what you've been wanting. And I got down to the end of the email, and I got back from the cruise 3 days too late to meet the deadline to be interviewed by this guy. And I was like, oh, man. So I was crestfallen. I was like, guys, with all of your ability to set things up and as far ahead in the future as you can see things, this, and the only thing they would tell me, the only thing they would say to me was, just wait, you're going to be so glad you missed this. And I was like, what? That makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm arguing with them, right? So weeks go by, and I'm still arguing with the guys and grousing about this and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm laying in bed one Saturday afternoon, lounged up in bed on my prop pillows watching TV, and I'm flipping through the channels, and I hit this channel, and here's Hockenberry, and he's interviewing John Edward. And I'm like, John Edward's got a New York Times best-selling book. He has his own TV show. John Edward doesn't need to be interviewed. I need to be interviewed. And so I'm watching this thing. I turn the volume up, and Hockenberry is doing everything in his power to make Edward sound like the most stupid, phony, jerkwater con artist there is on the planet. And I was like, oh my God, that would have been my introduction to the general public at large through TV. And the guys told you was going to be glad you missed this. And I was like, oh, okay, yep. So we have to be, when we say, hey, lead me, guide me, we have to be willing to be disappointed. We have to be willing for the answer to be no, or to wait, or to go off in some other direction.
You know what? I mean, that's pretty awesome, because without getting into detail, the last 2 days I've been dealing with something similar to personally. So like I resonate with that message.
Right.
Like in the terms of like I've been working on a case for a long time, and I finally get evidence that I need to prove my point.
Right.
But I've realized that if I prove my point now that I'm right, there's no need to go any further. Otherwise, I'm causing more harm than necessary. So what I've been doing is asking, what should I do, and just waiting. And then as I'm waiting, and now here we are reinforcing it in this message too, in a similar way. So it's really interesting. So, and it's right. We got to pay attention. We have to listen to ourselves. It's something I don't do very often. It's something I'm doing more myself than I have been in the past. And I do find that if it leads you to do good, then good should happen.
Right.
In your experience, has the voices ever or the messages ever led you astray? Have they ever broken your trust? Have you ever done anything bad, anything wrong?
Absolutely not. Never.
You think it's possible? Any demons, any interference, anything like that? Battle against good and evil?
Well, look, I don't see a demon behind every bush. I've never experienced the Exorcist movie thing or anything like that. Look, I don't deny that there's evil. All you got to do is read the paper. You see there's evil in the world. You can't deny that. If you extrapolate that to the spiritual realm, not everything can be roses and light and all that over there either. I don't believe that. But I don't believe that we have the negative or evil degree of influence that people attribute things to or chalk things up to. Now, do I believe there is a spiritual battle going on? Absolutely. Do I believe there's a war between good and evil? Absolutely. Are there a lot of things we wish we knew that we don't? Sure. But I think for the most part that we have to say, okay, basically when we get up, if we're asking for the power of good and for light to come to us and to help us, and that's our focus, and we're working toward that, I believe that's what we attract for the most part. Now, with that, do we get led astray? Absolutely, we get led astray. Look at the big fancy televangelists on TV that are worth tens of millions of dollars every year, and their followers live in poverty. That's being led astray. There's a voice that comes in the name of religion that leads you astray. Have you ever sold everything you had and wore rags and went to a commune and lived in a cult while the leader drove behind a Rolls Royce? Okay, then you've been led astray. You've been lied to. You've been led astray. And yes, there is that tendency in the world for us to experience that and for people to exploit that. And I think naturally, therefore, also in the spiritual realm. But I think people make themselves prey to that more than they're taken advantage of by something in the spiritual realm or whatever. There are ways out there to find honest answers, to be led in the right way without being led astray. But people had rather, look, I have a plethora of people worldwide that will tell you that over the years, my predictions have been 80 to 90% accurate. For the entire time that I've read for them, I have some clients that have been with me for decades. I have all of these things that there's photos of, videos of, other people have witnessed, so on and so forth. I have common sense, down to earth, practical, spiritual guidance that will take a client or someone that's seeking and put them in a right direction, in a positive direction that doesn't take advantage of them, that'll make their lives better, and so on and so forth. As a result of that, I don't even make a good living, let alone be rich. Now, if I were to wear a live snake wrapped around my head while I appeared, and outlandish clothes, and put some weird smelling thing on me, and told people that it come from another dimension, and told them all kinds of ridiculous, weird crap, I'd be a multimillionaire. And the problem is that we tend to go, and even people that are con artists will tell you that people tend to go more toward the con than they do toward the truth. And that's where our battle lies. That's where our problem is.
Yeah, because we don't know, but we're searching,
right?
And we want to find. We always want to find that piece, and whatever that piece
definitive answer. Yeah.
But so with human beings, we have the capability of doing good and evil based on our influence.
Right.
Do you think that the spiritual realm, are there only good and only bad, or are they one and also capable of doing good and bad based on their influence?
I think all of the above and then some. I think the spiritual realm, I really get pissed off, Ryan, at people that say, when you die and go to the other side, it's like this. The other realm is like this. The other side's like this. Life after death is like, we don't know. We don't know until we get there. And the information that we have coming back from the other side, for all of the years of research and investigation that we've done, big organizations, individuals, Stanford Research Institute, psychics, mediums, EVPs, seances, on and on and on and on and on. we just have tiny little bits and pieces to glimpse and put together. We have miraculous, marvelous, wonderful things that happen, but it's an incomplete picture at best when it does. And that's why we are still searching and researching and trying to find answers and trying to make sense out of things. And
Yeah, but it's because we're not working together. And
well, that's true. Everybody has a schism. It's like, well, I believe in UFOs, but man, I don't believe in psychics. Well, I believe in psychics, but I don't believe in dowsing. Or, well, I believe in this, but I don't believe in that. So we limit ourselves, and we're too willing to limit ourselves and to segregate ourselves. And then we're too willing to believe any silly thing that comes down the pike and just run with it instead of saying, whoa, 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 wait a minute. Let's investigate this. Let's see if that's real or not. If it is, and if it stands up, if it holds up to the investigation, the truth isn't going to shrink away or vanish just because we want to look at it. And so I think that we have to realize all those things come into play. It's a very complex, very complicated, and very frustrating thing. And we're working.
The thing is that it's either it doesn't exist or it all exists. So there's never, you can't believe in paranormal, like ghosts, but not UFOs, or the other way around.
Exactly.
You can't believe in extraterrestrials and not paranormal activity.
Right.
Because without understanding how they manifest, how they communicate, how they operate.
Correct.
There's a lot of trends, there's a lot of things within what we call the ultra spectrum, where we're studying the psychological, the consciousness contact or connection between both realms, to try to understand that they may very well be the same thing, just called something different by different people, and from different experiences, but and yet still having it exist. So the UFO community,
which is so splintered,
grinds my gears, because
me too.
They're so smart that they're dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And they know they will fight to the end that ghosts don't exist, paranormal doesn't exist, there's no evidence and all this other stuff, but yet they can make a career off of being a ufologist, which is someone who studies something that has not been identified.
Exactly.
How can you study something that you don't know what it is? And I can understand that when the term was coined back in the 40s, maybe. 80 years have passed, plus or minus, and they haven't figured it out yet.
They haven't figured it out yet, and now we call them UAPs instead of UFOs. We've changed the nomenclature, but then
this paranormal community who puts the same amount of effort in trying to understand life after death, the other side, and all these other things. And if we were to assume for a second, if the UFO guy were to assume for a second that maybe the ET was a interdimensional ghost,
right,
all of us paranormal guys would be able to be like, we knew that all along. Welcome to the club. But yet they can't accept this spiritual stuff because we can't.
Well,
we can't show it in this material world.
Yeah, that's like Lou Elizondo, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. But he said one time, and I have that somewhere in print, he said one time that ultimately the UFO thing may lead in a spiritual direction, and he hoped that it didn't. But he had to be prepared to accept that if it did, right? So that's where the UFO community lies. Like you say, it's like, okay, we can accept that there are nuts and bolts craft that can do everything that violates every known law of physics and science that we have, and probably are piloted by extraterrestrial beings that come from galaxies far, far away, and they can get here in a split second if they want to. But a ghost? No way.
and the other thing that grinds my gears with that is if you were to turn it around a little bit and say, well, hey, maybe it's not a ghost, maybe it's not ET, maybe it's us, maybe it's man driving the craft.
Right.
They won't even accept that.
Yeah.
They
And
won't
at
even.
this stage
It's
of the
not even
game-
possible for ourselves to drive.
Yeah. At this stage of the game, you have to be open to a lot of possibilities because nobody knows. We don't have the answer. Well, let me back up on that.
Okay.
None of us know. I do believe psychically, and I do believe logically that there are people in the government and in the military that do have the answer. And they haven't made it available for whatever reason, and we can speculate whatever those reasons are.
Do you
But-
need to know what that answer is that's for the entire world? What we don't have is an understanding or confirmation of it globally. But you,
Right.
as an experiencer, as a witness,
Right.
you know what it is. You believe it to be something.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that not good enough?
No, it's not, because in everything that we experience, we need to have the answer for that experience and how we integrate that into our lives. It's like I have a third book coming out, and in this book, it's called 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities.
Okay.
And it's for the average person on the street that doesn't know beans and wants to increase their psychic abilities. Each chapter will have one lesson. So 20 ways to increase your psychic abilities, 20 chapters. And each chapter has one thing in it. And what I do from my own experience, my own knowledge, and I know that this works, I take the, for example, the first chapter is on psychometry. And it defines what it is. It explains it so that you can understand, oh, okay, so that's what it is. And then it tells you step by step. I take your hand and lead you step by step through how to learn it, and then how to practice it so you get good at it, and then the real world application of that. Because if you learn psychometry and you go to a party and you say, hey, give me your ring, and they give you your ring, and you go, you bought this in Dallas. Oh, wow, man, that's cool. That's cool. That's the end of it. It's a parlor trick. It's a real manifestation. It actually occurred, but it's a parlor trick, and that's it. Now, if you take the real world application of being able to do that, and somebody comes to you and says, man, I've got this contract here, and I don't know whether to sign this thing or not. Let me see it. And you hold on to that contract, and you go, oh, man, this guy's a shyster. Don't sign this contract. Don't do with this. That's the real world application of it. So these things we learn and we experience, we need to integrate them into our lives so that we help ourselves and so that we help others. So seeing the thing, is that enough answer? No. Why is it here? Who's piloting it? What are their intentions? What's going on? That's what we have to discern, and that's what we have to apply then.
Okay. Are there some circumstances where it can be okay, though? Because, like, I understand where you're coming from because you're an investigator. I'm the same way. I'm an investigator. That's. I want to know I want to know.
Where, why, when, and how. Yeah.
But I mean, if I were to just settle, like, there's a lot of things that I could say, yeah, I know. Like, I know for sure that the ufology community is a business model and a scam.
Exactly.
Like,
Bingo. Thank you for saying that. Bingo.
Yeah. So let's actually pause right here because we got to head over for a commercial break anyway.
Sure.
And then we'll get into that. So we'll pause
All right.
right here, but we'll be back. We'll continue after a message from our professional partners. Also, if you're listening to this on KPNL Radio or a future podcast, remember to head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association to see the live video that goes with this audio. Remember, you're listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat podcast by the Experiencer Support Association. I'm with John Russell, and we will be right back.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that we're alone in the universe.
My mission is to assist and help those experiencing this phenomenon in such a way that they're able to continue and live with it, and also in a way that it can be measured, quantified, and reinforced within today's society, so that way it can be accepted and no longer viewed in a negative way. One thing that I do value in people is the ability to sense and feel when something is right and when something is wrong. That is a natural ability that we all share. Now, when we combine that with the paranormal and ufological abductions or visits, I have this sensation that these abilities are connected. Not everyone can sense, not everyone can feel. However, those who can are typically connected with something that we cannot explain. And part of my research is not just to investigate the experience, but it's also to understand and study the experiencer to find out what they have in common with other experiencers, to try to figure out what the actual makeup is in order to be on that spectrum. There's a lot of it happening all over the world, and I do not know of any other study that is focusing on the individuals as people, only the phenomenon.
Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. If you're enjoying this episode so far, please consider becoming a member of our channel or send us a super chat. Your membership will get you bonus content, like exclusive videos, and will help us reach our goal of launching our training center, which is Interstellar, the Academy of Ufology and Paranormal Studies. Also, if you've ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFO, extraterrestrials, dogmen, or any other paracryptid, head over to texacan.org/recording system. The more reports we get, the more we will understand this phenomenon and how it affects our people. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. I'm still here with John Russell. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, having a ball.
Right on. Just going to shout out to our members that are here tonight. Hello, Chantel. Good to see ya. Hello, UFO man. Chantel says she's watching from her phone tonight. Just submitted a report. Awesome. I think I saw that come in, actually. Right on. Thank you for doing that. What else we got going on for members? Christopher Lee, good to see you tonight. There's an email for you, Christopher Lee. Make sure you respond to that. Just getting home from your work. Right on. Nice to see you. And yeah, so that's it. That's all the members in tonight. Okay. So I'm going to kind of frame this a little bit because we were just talking about the industry, the business, the charade. I don't know from your experience, so I might be reaching a little bit, but I'm kind of hoping that there might be something from this. But you filmed a TV pilot for the History Channel, but it wasn't aired.
Right.
So did any of that reason for not being aired have to do with any of the charade that we have going on in terms of telling us what to do and what to say, or is that just completely something different? What happened there?
My speculation, and I can be wrong here, my speculation is that it may have been shut down, but not necessarily from the powers that be. One thing that I know for an absolute certainty, and I do know this for a fact, was that there were people, other psychics in the paranormal community that were jealous that I was chosen as the talent for the series and tried to overthrow that so that they could get it in my place. I know that to be a fact. So there was that professional jealousy there. Another thing that I encountered was that the famous ancestors, there were descendants of those people in the places that we went and investigated. And one of the docents at one of those places told me that they agreed with everything that I saw psychically, but if they went on camera and said that, they would lose their job. And then there were some other places we went to that we just kind of outright ruffled everybody's feathers and almost made enemies, basically. And I couldn't help but wonder if there weren't some of the people that went to the History Channel and said, hey, man, if you air this, we're going to sue you, you know, and for giving us a bad name here or whatever. So I think that may have been a part of it. I don't know. My producer said, John, it could have been. It also could have been with me being in this business for a while. You know, one day, John Russell's the greatest thing since sliced bread. This thing's the most marvelous thing we've ever seen. The next day, John who? You know, and that occurs in the industry. So I don't know, but I have my speculation that it could have been shut this thing down.
So my little background from filming in the past as well, I've done one show called Evil Encounters. I was an expert on for paranormal and UFO stuff on there. Mm-hmm. I did a couple film projects after that, and which didn't make it to the final cut. Right. And what I've been told is that my truth isn't entertaining. So because I wasn't able to be like, so it'd be like, so this is the experience. This guy goes in and the lights flicker and he's feeling all uncomfortable and he's sweating. And what is it? And then I'd be like, it's probably a faulty wire. Did you check to make sure the light bulb was okay? And they're like, that's not what we want. Well, what do you want? That's possible, right? So
we want you to go in and scream and run out.
So I get paid for the day. I say a whole bunch of things like that, and they don't end up using it. Why? Because it doesn't. For the story, for the show, which was Haunted Hospitals, by the way. That was the one that I was being an expert for.
Right.
They couldn't use it because it wasn't entertainment, because it wasn't that style of show.
Right.
We don't really have a lot of. I don't think we have any shows where the truth is exposed. So
no, we have a lot of things that are designed to, as a lot of people agree with me and say, we have shows that are designed to put butts in the seat in front of the TV and make advertisers money, and it's entertainment value, and the truth is not being communicated.
So with the new UFO buzz, with the UAP report, which we'll get into because I know you wanted to talk about that, we're seeing more shows on this culture. I haven't even watched any of it because I can't look at it without assuming or thinking that it's all crap.
Right.
If that's the mainstream media, if that's what it takes to be successful, to get on TV and to be famous, can we trust it?
No.
At all? Not even a little bit? Like, is there anybody in showbiz right now, in ufology, in your opinion, or paranormal studies, that is telling the truth?
You know, at this stage of the game, Ryan, what I have observed, and I've even said this to some of the big names in the business and haven't gotten a response, but I've said, you know, if you look back where we were 10 years ago in the realm of UFO research, and then you fast forward to the present time, you've got the same people with the same books, or maybe a new book, going to the same conferences year after year, doing the same things. And what do we know now that we didn't know 10 years ago? Nothing.
Well, what I know now that I didn't know 10 years ago is that these guys make lots of money now.
Yeah. It's a cottage industry.
They didn't have lots of money before. And
Yeah.
you know what? Money is needed for the industry.
Oh, sure. We got to pay our bills. Yeah, we got to pay our bills.
But it's an easy way to be influenced when it becomes dependable.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and that was the thing too. Did you get paid for that pilot? Like to produce that? Or
yeah.
So there was a little bit of incentive there. As long as they didn't steal your idea. Did they, they didn't just go and create a new show, did they?
No.
Okay, good. Well, that's good then. You
Yeah.
got paid for your time. And that's how it works. For you experiencers listening, it is an industry. They pay you to sit, to provide your expertise, and then they edit it and they make it entertaining, and then they put it on TV, and then the TV runs their commercials. And then the more people that watch the show, the more people see those ads, and the people that pay for those ads, that money gets distributed to the network. So that's how it works. So they want, and just like this show here, we have ads running for monetization, but that's paid by the corporate side. And the more people that watch us, the more they get money, and the more that we get a small percentage of that. And that's how that would work. So
I have to tell you about that. I have to interject and tell you about the pilot. I think that I think in all seriousness, ego aside, I think in all seriousness, this pilot would have set the bar for paranormal shows for a long time to come, because I am not one of these psychics that goes in and starts cursing at the ghost and challenging them. That's stupid and it's foolish and it's disrespectful. And
it's risky.
Yeah, it is risky. And I've got a story I can tell you about the power of the other side that'll show you it's risky. The way that we conducted the shooting of the pilot was completely respectful. It was above board. It was practical. It was semi-scientific in some regards, and it actually told a story. And what I told them when we went in, I said, look, it doesn't do any good to experience this if I don't say and figure out this is what's occurring and why. And that's what we did. And I saw the fine cut of the pilot, which never aired, unfortunately. And I think we would have blown everybody away forever, because it was no stupid special effects. And I told everybody when we went in, I said, look, I don't care what happens. I said, when people are around me, I'm a magnet for the paranormal. And I said, people go, oh, yeah, sure. And then they see things happen. And they did. And I said, look, regardless of what you see happen with your physical eyes, you keep filming. Don't get scared. Don't freak out and don't run. If you see me run, then you can run. But I said, otherwise, you keep filming. So we had this, this practicality, and it managed to be entertaining the way that they edited and put it together. It was entertaining, but not in a foolish way or a silly way or a nonsensical way.
It needs to be entertaining, because we got to keep the attention going, right?
Sure,
long shows and all that other stuff. It might be entertaining for a little bit. And so the process is needed. Where my concern comes in is that over time, these guys have established a habit, a routine, familiar faces, a guaranteed source of income, which gives them the opportunity. Because
all it is entertainment at that point.
Then, yeah, exactly. At what point? And I believe that these people started like on the up and up, as serious Adventees and all these other stuff, wanting to get
I think some of them may have started with good intent, yeah. And then as the money comes, and it gets easier and easier to go, oh, I saw a ghost or whatever, and it's like.
So if you look at them now, look at the guys that are famous right now. How far away are they from the way that they started? And
it's pretty disheartening and pretty far away from the truth, And that's what we have to look at. It has become a cottage industry. It's like psychics have become a cottage industry. Look at Sylvia Brown. $850, right? If you want to go to Sylvia Brown, I had a lot of Sylvia Brown's clients come to me, and all of a sudden I had this spate of clients that had gone to Sylvia Brown. They were coming to me for readings, And they would tell me, they would say, John, I don't know who she's reading for, but she wasn't reading for me. And I have always asked my clients and challenged my clients over the years when I give them a reading, I said, how was that? Was it accurate? Do you feel like it was insightful? And I know you have to wait on the predictions, but call me back when they happen to know them. And so I would ask these people, I said, well, I know you didn't think she was hitting you at all, but what about, oh, you were fantastic. You were great. You were really just, you hit everything nail on the head. So we kept talking. I kept talking to her former clients. And this is one, I said, I said, she was telling me all the stuff that went on. I said, man, for $850 an hour, and she stopped me and she goes, no, it's not $850 an hour. I said, well, I saw on her website, it's $850 for a reading. She says, honey, it's not $850 an hour. It's $850 a reading. The reading may be 10 minutes and then you're out of there. I said, are you kidding me? Are you kidding?
So let's talk about that. Even $1, okay? $1 amount. How can you quantify or monetize something that cannot be definitively guaranteed?
Right.
Because $1, okay, some people can't afford $1, believe it or not.
Right.
You know, so $850. That to me, that pisses me off. Like,
it pisses me off. It pisses me off.
That establishes a market in which she's tailoring to, which establishes a motive of what price bracket she's looking to engage to, which also makes her not available to lower class.
Oh, sure.
And so that's an obvious that there's greed there.
Yeah.
Now, should she be paid for her time? Of course, it's a service. Yeah. Right? How do you market that? How do you do all that? You can compare that to any service. An electrician who pays $20 an hour versus an electrician you pay him $50 an hour. You get what you pay for. There's a variance between that, but at least you know that the electrician fixed the problem.
Exactly.
So with that, that's where I always have that. We talk about charlatans and fakes, and let's get into mediumship and things like that too. Let's go down that road.
Oh boy, I've got experience there. Let me tell you.
In my opinion, I don't think anyone should charge directly for a service. And I don't know how you work your business, so I just no offense, but should charge directly for something that, like a result or a reading of some sort from a message from a place that we can't confirm exists that may influence someone to do something.
Right.
However, I think it would be acceptable to provide the service and then ask for a donation by the person to give you a variance of whatever that means to them or whatever it's worth to them.
Well, let me tell you the problem with that, Ryan. And I've got, like I say, I've got 50 years experience with that.
Okay.
If you count on the honesty of people to pay what they can or what they will, or down the road, or give them a break, or send me what you can in a couple of weeks, you will be out on the street living in a cardboard box and begging.
If you're depending on the income.
No, not depending on the income. The worst people I read for are rich people, because they're the tightest and the stingiest, and they want to screw you out of a free reading if they can. And it goes across all income levels, all strata. And I have had a number of years, I'm a business. I pay taxes, okay? And I have expenses, just like any other business does. And if I don't have a way to meet those, then I'm not sitting here talking to you on the podcast. I'm not giving people readings from whatever. And like somebody pointed out the other day, another podcast was on, a good friend of mine. He said, you're not charging for your gift. You're charging for your time, which is true. If you want me to sit here and give you a reading, I have to have some way to do that, unless I've got some rich uncle subsidizing me, which I don't. But what I did for a number of years, out of the goodness and kindness of my heart, no kidding, no exaggeration, was people that were like, well, I can't pay you now, but I'll send you a check next week. Okay. And I'd give them the reading. The check would never come. And you call them and you don't get the check. And then, man, I can't. And I used to have like staggered amounts for a reading for a certain amount of time. And the very lowest one was like $50, which at the time, before the crash occurred, anybody on the planet could afford. I had people bilk me out of that repeatedly. I had people send me hot checks. All kinds of over and over and over. And it was finally, like, look, My bottom line is starting to hurt here a little bit because I'm providing a service that I'm getting stiffed for repeatedly. And then there was a scam for a while, and I became aware of this. And people would call up, not just me, but other psychics, and they would go, wow, that was a really great reading. That was really fantastic. Thank you. And then a few days later, they'd either call you back or email you and go, you know, I've studied on this thing, and since then I disagree with a lot of what you said. I don't really think you're accurate at all. I want a refund. And you'd refund their money, and they'd take that money and they'd go pay another psychic, get another reading, and then they'd do the same thing to them. So free reading after free reading after free reading. And that was a scam that was going on for a while. People never think of the other side of it. You know, they always see the phony psychics, the phony mediums, and everything else. They don't realize we get scammed by a lot of people and stiffed by a lot of people too. So there's that side of it out there to contend with.
You just collect the money up front. But
yeah.
So,
well,
but
that's what
I mean,
yeah.
As long as you're communicating that, you know, and there's that exchange when you're going into, right? So like you're obviously communicating that before you provide the service. There's that thing, and then you have that agreement. You provide that reading, you provide that service. That person feels they get that need. That energy is there. And you know what? They might even go around and they might be referring you. They might be liking your page, and you know, there's other ways to pay it forward in certain ways like that. The issue, that's just business. The issue that I have, though, like I said, when you mentioned with her, like to cap it at a certain, to make it so, you know, crazy that, like, I mean, to imply that you're good at what you do, at something that is so hard to prove. It's like, it's so obvious that you're fake.
Exactly.
But yet, the consumer, the people still will pay for it because they'll pay for
that rather than pay me $125.
But even then, like, I mean, it's just, there's that manipulation, that marketing, that mind control, that marketing that allows them to think.
Oh, absolutely.
But they're pulling from the same source.
Yeah.
They're getting the same, because if the guide is for, say for me, for an example, if from what I'm understanding with this spectrum, if I need a message from my guardian angel, you should get the same guardian angel as Sylvia Brown.
Right.
So why would I pay $850 for her and when I can pay $125 for you if I'm going to get the same message?
There you go. That's it. And you have to realize that most of these people that claim to have a gift don't have a gift. And most of these people are making it up, phoning it in, whatever. And, you know, I watched there was a special on, again, on one of the documentary shows, 48 Hours or whatever. And they had, were talking about the phony psychics that were in Manhattan. I lived in New York with my wife at the time. She was a New York native.
Okay.
And you would go down the streets in Manhattan, and in the brownstones, you would see a sign in the window that said, psychic reading special $10. And my wife asked me one day, she said, I know what you charge. I know what your taxes are. I know what your expenses are. And I know how much you make, which is nothing. And she said, how can somebody afford to live in a brownstone and charge $10 for a psychic reading? She said, I don't get this. I said, well, they're not charging $10 for a psychic reading. That's the bait to come in. And then it's break the egg open, see the evil black stuff in it and go, oh my God, you're cursed and we got to get rid of that. And then it's thousands and maybe tens of thousands on top of that. And that happens all the time. And so shortly after that, we saw a report.
And that's taking advantage of people. That's manipulation. And that's not right.
Sure.
And the TV shows are like that as well. So, and the expos, the events, the conferences.
Right.
That's another funnel. That's another scam, because it's like, I have the secrets of the universe. I know the answers.
Right.
But you got to purchase tickets at this event, fly all the way across the world, and sit in front of me at that particular location for me to tell you. And then you get there, and you listen to the message. And what do they say? Almost everything. Except you gotta buy my book.
That's it.
And it will tell you everything that's inside that. And then you buy the book, and then you read it, and you're like, I already knew that.
Yeah. And then they go, well, but see, that's the introduction to my special teaching, and that's only 5,000. But when you get through with that, you're gonna, and that's how all these things are born, and that's how they all grow.
That's marketing. So okay. So let's get into the light work. Let's go. Actually, you know what? We're already in this rabbit hole. Let's go to the UFO and UAP report. You mentioned just before we started the show that
Right.
you've read that,
Yeah.
and you wanted to talk about it. So I guess remind everybody what it is, because it's been a while since it's been mentioned.
Sure.
And let me know what you think about it, and then we'll go from there.
Well, the Department of National Intelligence published the report, and it's a preliminary assessment, which means that other things are coming, and it's unclassified, which means we got, out of 9 pages, I think it was, we got 4 pages that actually contained anything. And then, of course, the White House and so on and so forth got the classified version, which apparently was 70, 80, 90 pages, something like that, and apparently contained some real gems. But what I found really interesting in this little tiny drop of a thing that they gave us was there were a few gems in there, I think. And one of the things that really, really, really registered for me, because I've always maintained that UFOs were physical objects. They weren't something that we manifested with our consciousness. They weren't something that we hallucinated as a mass hallucination. Are they possibly interdimensional objects? Well, yeah, like you said, we can't rule that out, but we don't know. But I've always maintained they're physical objects. And on page 3 of the report, they admit that UAPs are physical objects. Quote, they say most of the UAP reported probably do represent physical objects, given that a majority of UAP were registered across multiple sensors to include radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and visual observation, people seeing them as well. So I've always maintained that these were literally actual physical objects that people were seeing, that they were piloted either directly or remotely by some beings or intelligences or races or whatever, and that they are separate and apart from us. I do not believe that they're our technology. I don't believe that we have that. And a lot of people are saying, hey, folks, this is not us. These are not ours. So that was one of the things that I found really, really super interesting. The other thing is that they finally acknowledged the socio-cultural stigmas that they created, which is you don't talk about this, or you lose your job, or you lose your pilot's wings, or you get kicked out of the service, or whatever. So they finally acknowledged that there was that socio-cultural stigma. And of course, we all know they created it. And now they're saying that they're trying to work toward, easing that so that people can come and in the military and the pilots and so on and so forth can report these things without that stigma being there. So that was kind of nice to see that they've acknowledged that they muddied up the waters all these years. One of the interesting things I wanted to know what was on page 5 of the report, it said in a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed RF energy, radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. What does that mean? Were UAPs communicating with pilots? Were they communicating with each other? Was it some other type of RF energy? What was that? They dangled it out there and then they just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the UAP observations could be attributable to developments and classified programs by U.S. entities. And then here comes the infamous and emphasis, which is mine, and a boom goes the dynamite moment. We were unable to confirm, however, that these systems accounted for any of the UAP reports we collected. Okay, so they're saying, hey, that's not ours. We can't say that it's ours. We can't state that it's ours. And for people that have said that, well, geez, it could be China, it could be Russia. Mm-hmm. That's insane. Number one, if it was, our spies have failed miserably. Number two, our technology has failed miserably. Number three, if it was Russia, we'd all be making pilgrimages to Moscow next year to hail Putin. Okay. China wants to dominate the world. Putin wants to dominate the world. I predicted a long time ago that Russia would rise to superpower status again, and it has. And I had a friend I grew up with, went to grade school with, and he told me one day, he said, John, he said, if Putin had $5 to his name and was starving to death, he would give that last $5 he had to the destruction of the U.S. And I have a buddy that's a Ukraine national, and and of course, Ukraine has their problems with Russia stomping all over them and controlling them and everything else. And so I asked this buddy of mine that's a Ukraine national, I told him what my friend said, and I said, what do you think about that? And he said, I think he's exactly 100% correct. So if it was some foreign power, we would be dealing with that foreign power right now, and in not a good way. So the only conclusion that I can have, and look, like people like Lou Elizondo and other people have all but come out and said, folks, it's off planet. It's not ours. And they repeatedly keep stating, this is not our technology. We don't have this. We can't do this.
But they can't see, they cannot say definitively that it's not from our planet until they capture it and they examine it. So
I think
it's
they already have.
That's what we don't have divulged. So we need to trust whether or not this document is accurate, right? Because
the military news, the Pentagon admitted that they had anomalous UFO debris in their possession that they were studying. That came out, I think, like a year ago, something like that. So they
off-world retrievals or something like that was the word.
Well, I'm sorry. Say again. I just lost you. Your mic's off.
My
there you are.
My earphones died, so I didn't know I turned my mic off.
Yeah, there you go.
Off-world craft is what they, or off-world materials retrieved or something was the wording that they were trying to say. Assuming
debris.
But here's the thing. Okay, so from an investigator point of view, okay, right. So as far as evidence goes, I don't accept Lou Elizondo's testimony at all.
Really?
Because it's speculation. It's corroboration around his own agenda, which he's making money off of. He's providing new evidence only when his current evidence is questioned. So he's adding things in layers, and he's making a lot of mistakes in everything that he's saying. But however, that doesn't mean he's not telling the truth. It just means the story is changing, the story is evolving, and I don't trust it because it's not consistent and it's always changing whenever there's someone snooping or asking the right question and paying attention. So I don't like that right off the bat. This document to me is the only thing that I can think is factual because it came from your government.
Right.
It provides an analysis that anyone can speculate, and then until they brief us on whatever those other things were, we'll never know what it means. But it's still possible, because my assessment on this at the end of this, my summary was tech is inadequate. We did what was asked. If you want us to do more, then funding is needed to increase the study because we currently don't have the resources.
Now, see, that's something that I have to jump in with both feet, and I'll tell you why. Obviously, the U.S. government has black budgets. We have all the deep pockets that we want to militarily, so the money is there. Number one. Number two, we don't have the technology to accurately capture this, investigate this, or whatever. Let me tell you what I saw one time, Ryan. I saw a documentary on TV. And in this documentary, we had one of the former heads of the CIA talking about the SR-71 Blackbird. And the SR-71 Blackbird was the U.S.'s premier spy plane. It flew in subspace. That's how high it flew. And it flew so fast that nothing on the planet could catch it. You could fire missiles or rockets at it or whatever. It didn't matter. It could outrun everything. And he said in this documentary, this is the former head of the CIA speaking, he said in this documentary that with the SR-71 Blackbird flying in subspace at speed, that if you had two golf balls a couple of feet apart on a putting green, that when the Blackbird flew over and took a picture, when that picture was developed, you could clearly read which one was the Titleist and which one was the McGregor. And he said, that's decades old technology. Imagine what we can do now. Okay. So that's why I don't buy the thing that, well, we just can't get a grip on these things. Baloney. You know, my feeling logically and psychically is that somebody knows beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Which is where we're supposed to get a debrief in September, are we not? We're not supposed to get, and
I believe we're supposed to get another one. Yeah.
Yeah. So this preliminary report is basically presented as requested by a deadline to present a certain amount of cases in which they cannot be identified based on a series of variants of reports. This is coming from my experience of receiving various types of reports. Sometimes it's
and look, all the alphabet agencies are outlined in that thing.
Well, no, of course. So what they're doing now is they're preparing to either explain or what they are, or preparing to explain to us
why they can't.
Why they can't. And in order to do so this is what you're saying. So it's still possible with the American analysis that it could be China and could be Russia, because they may not have talked to them yet. But before they can flat out and say, hey, it is Russia or it is China, they're going to have to talk to them. Mm-hmm. And so if it is Russia and it is China or it is China, they'll claim ownership. And if they don't, then everybody has to be within the United Nations, Canada as well, would have to also weigh in and say nobody knows what these are. Just because what this document is telling me is that the United States doesn't know what it is.
Well, in addition to the United States having these experiences with these craft, other countries are also having similar or identical experiences with these craft. And where we have had our nuclear missiles shut down by these craft, Ukraine has had its missiles shut down by these craft. So what we're experiencing, other countries are also experiencing, and in a deleterious way sometimes. So I can't see it being some other government, because governments worldwide are affected.
Well, how else would you test experimental craft? You have technology that can mask radar, that can fly, that can do so many things undetected that no one's ever seen before. You want to bring it into enemy territory, and you want to do something to see if it's able to complete a mission. How else would you test that unless actually doing that? And then you're in, and then you're out, right? And nobody knows the wiser, except for some civilian sees it and videotapes it. And now everybody's talking about it because they've been doing it for so long. Or everybody's in on it. See, that's the thing is if nobody knows what it is, then it becomes a threat. It's a problem for the entire world.
Exactly.
But like you said, somebody has to know what it is. And if they know what it is, does that mean aliens?
I think so.
Yeah?
I do. And let me tell you one other thing, too, before we go down that rabbit hole. If you go back into the history of UFO research, there are sightings of craft that were light years beyond the technology of the time. And then for what it's worth, as a psychic, when I have gone, there are rich fields here in Florida for communication with the other side and with spirits that come back and impart information from certain time frames and things, like Native American spirits that I've communicated with. And they told me that back then they saw these craft in the sky. So that predates any of our technology that it could explain this now from any country. So what I have gleaned is that these things have always been here, or at least been here for, hundreds of years, thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands of years, whatever. So that predates any technology that would explain this away.
Well, they have to know what it is, otherwise it'd be a threat. And if it's
I think that they do, and then that goes down the rabbit hole of, you see some people that say, well, there are alien species that have made pacts with our government and and you go down all these things. And so, okay, what is it? And that's what we don't know. That's the truth that we have to get to, is that if somebody knows, you read the book The Day After Roswell by Philip J. Corso. You look at all these things and you say, okay, somebody has to know. Things are not that compartmentalized. something of this nature, something of this magnitude, somebody has to know. But who is that somebody? Why are they hiding it? Why do they not disseminate it to us? And that's what we have to do. I went to back in 1998. There was a thing that they held every year in Roswell, and this one was called Alien Encounter 98. And I went to give psychic readings there. I set up a deal and did psychic readings, and they had all kinds of other vendors and psychics and everything else, and they had lecturers. Stanton Friedman was there, and that was the first time I got to see Stanton Friedman in person. And one morning I got up, and I decided I'm going to go to the Roswell UFO Museum before everything opened, and I had to be there to do my readings. It's like, how can you go to Roswell and not go to the UFO Museum, right? So I got there before it opened, and I'm like looking in the windows, looking at the displays or whatever, and hanging out on the sidewalk waiting for the museum to open. And this lady walks by. There's not a lot of foot traffic. It's me and her out there. And she stops. She goes, "Oh, are you waiting for the museum to open?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I'm just hanging out here on the sidewalk. I got here a little early, and I'm waiting for it to open. And we just get to chitter chatting, and she's like, "Well, are you from New Mexico?" And I said, "Well, interestingly enough, I was born in New Mexico, but I've never lived here, and I've never been to Roswell. This is my first time to Roswell." She goes, "Oh, well, what brings you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm a psychic." And I said, "I'm doing readings at Alien Encounter 98. And she looked at me for a little bit, and she goes, "Well, then you'll understand and believe what I'm going to tell you." And I said, "Okay." So I'm expecting some nutcase weird story about, she woke up in the middle of the night and an alligator looking alien raped her or something. I'm like, oh God, here we go. So she said, when my brother and I were young, we saw the craft come over, and we could tell it was in trouble, and we saw it crash over off in the distance. And she said, we knew it wasn't a plane. We knew it wasn't a weather balloon. We knew it wasn't a blimp. We knew it wasn't a helicopter. It was a UFO. We saw it with our own eyes while we were outside playing. And we could tell it was in some kind of distress. It was obvious. And we saw the thing crash. And I was just gobsmacked, Ryan. I was like, holy cow, I've got an eyewitness testimony to the Roswell UFO crash. And so we talked a little bit longer. And I said, God, why don't more people like you come forward? I mean, you saw the thing. Eyewitness, you were there. And she said, well, at the time when it happened, and this is corroborated from a lot of other stories if you do even casual research. She said, at the time when it happened, we had people coming that were military people, government people, some people we didn't know who the hell they were. And the message was, if you talk about this, if you spread this around, your bones are going to be found out in the desert. And she said, we were terrified. We were scared to death. And she said, people that weren't scared for themselves, like, well, bring it, I don't care. Then we'll get to your family. And, people were frightened for their families, scared for their families. And I said, well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I can understand why people wouldn't come forward. And all of a sudden she looks up and down the street like this a couple of times and says, I've said too much already. I'm out of here. And have a nice, enjoy your thing, and walked on and left. So all that many years later, the fear was there. And that's one of the things that we deal with when we try and get people in the know to come forward. The fear is there. And then also I had a good buddy that was a major in the Air Force, and he also worked for the NSA and did some things, had multiple top secret clearances. And in the military, the allegiance to that NDA, that allegiance to that top secret clearance is sacrosanct. It's like this guy would just, you can put, bamboo shoots under his fingernails. He wouldn't tell you anything. I mean, these people are just absolutely ironclad into that oath. And I think that's why we get so many, or rather so few deathbed confessions, is because these people are just like, I'm taking this to the grave with me. So we have a lot of things there to overcome.
I have, I'm just sharing my screen right now for those who are listening to the audio version. You want to come over to YouTube to see what it is I'm talking about, but this is just for John. This on our website, tessacan.org. This is where I share some of the documents that I've retrieved for the disclosure part in Canada. this document right here, this interrogation report of flying saucers, June 21st to 23rd, 1952. This is an RCMP document. If you read through it, what it basically is a German guy who had came from Bavaria, who had explained to the RCMP the technology that Germany has to create flying saucers.
Right.
And he also explains on how the United States government is trying to learn how to create these same things.
Right.
And use it in the Cold War.
Sure.
So through this investigation, they got interviewed with the RCMP. They got interviewed with the Defense Research Board. They got interviewed with the National Research Council as well. And what they did is the council considered this guy to be not credible because they didn't think that he actually understood how the machine worked well enough to claim to be an engineer of flying saucers.
Right.
So what I pulled from that, from other circumstantial documents that I have on the website, is that our Canadian government was aware of how the flying saucers work. So this document was in 1952, but the crash that the event that he was talking about was in 1943.
Right.
So that's 4 years before Roswell. So the technology exists. Our Canadian government was aware of how the craft worked because they knew enough that this guy was lying, apparently, about how it worked to know that it wasn't one of the German ones. So in this document, it proves that the Germans had a flying saucer capability and the United States were trying to steal it. And then 4 years later, something crashed. So the speculation here is that there's countless witnesses that observed, no doubt out of my mind, that a flying saucer machine was witnessed and crashed in Roswell, New Mexico.
Right.
But the speculation around that is whether or not that was ours, or German, or American testing it, because the technology existed. And if that technology existed then, and then they covered it up because that's a pretty
the nature of the beast.
Real.
Yeah. Right.
80 years later, as you mentioned earlier, when the guy said the CIA man had spoke, I forget what his name was. Sorry, pardon me. Imagine what kind of technology we have now.
Right.
So that's man. That is not alien. That is not ET. That is just technology engineering across borders. And that document is here in Canada. You don't get that in the States.
Right.
But what Canada is supposed to do is hand over all our information to the States through this service or NORAD kind of silly agreement. So you guys, every time something happens here, we have to let you guys know about it. But the point that I'm trying to make is no bodies were ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
The story is all about a machine. It's all about a craft, but the bodies didn't come until later.
Yeah. Well, that's what Philip J. Corso says in his book, The Day After Roswell. He alleges that there were bodies. Mm-hmm. And so we have to, this is part of digging back through all of this and finding out what is and what isn't.
Well, that's not exactly it. But what I'm emphasizing here is nobody is accusing ourselves. Mm-hmm. We are just as capable. If we were to put human beings inside as a witness, or sorry, as a suspect, mm-hmm. we would solve. This mystery is solved. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, as a whole, community, civilization is unwilling to accept the possibility that man did it.
Yeah.
We believe that it was a higher power. And why do you think that?
Well, for one thing, one of the UFO experiences I had was where a UFO, and this is a long story, and I'll shorten it down. I know we're running out of time here, but the UFO went from right down here close by where the little Cessna planes fly. We live close to a small airport here. And the UFO went from there to the universe in less than a second's time with no sonic boom, no flash, no flame, no noise, no nothing. And if it were a human pilot, you ain't surviving that.
What about remote viewing, remotely piloted?
If so, man, we've got some awesome stuff if that's the case, but we don't know.
Well,
We
yeah,
don't know.
it's possible though, because they're
is
not
possible.
trying to show
It is
us
possible.
the technology that they have. Because
But with
yeah, go ahead.
this experience, when this thing came around
Yeah.
and I saw it, it was an orange orb coming through the sky real slowly. And I said, son of a bitch, that's a UFO. And I stood up and I was looking at it and I watched it and I said, if you can hear me, and I said it telepathically and out loud, I said, if you can hear me, stop and then back up a little bit. And it stopped and it backed up a little bit. So if it's remotely piloted, they must have one hell of a damn audio system. So
we're generalizing here. See, I'm not saying that UFOs like that don't exist. That's a light. That's an orb. That's like I said, different type of that's an archetype. That's a different grouping altogether.
Right.
What I'm saying is the Roswell crash machine. It was not. I don't think the evidence doesn't suggest to me that is extraterrestrial of origin at all.
Yeah.
And Tic Tac does not appear to be extraterrestrial to me at all. But that doesn't mean that these other things don't exist. It's separate. So I feel like all this stuff is a distraction, because this orange orb that you described, that is common. That is a very common description.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
As well. And that is a, like, even on this book here, this is my Canadian current event survey, where the Canadian government actually allegedly chased a bright light that was an orange orb.
Right.
That's the main feature of this book. So there's something up with that particular thing, but that's not a machine.
Sure.
But again, that could still be technology that we don't know of.
Could be. It could be.
There's no other evidence. To me, I'm leaning towards either secret tech on that or perhaps extraterrestrial origin.
Yeah.
Because there's no reference technology to compare that to.
Exactly.
With the UFO being a machine, a flying saucer, we can compare that to aircraft. We can compare that to helicopters because it's the same technology.
Well, you can, but if you look back at the Nazi flying bell, it wasn't capable of anything remotely close to what these things do.
Right. So
we have to look at all of that, and I think we have to look at, with all of our stealth technology that we have here and with everything else,
it's the middle. We got to find the middle, because what's happening is there is something that we can't explain happening, and there is us as human beings trying to develop the same thing, maybe to work with or combat.
Right.
Perhaps. Right. We don't know the relationship if there's even one.
Well, we don't know. That's it. That's exactly it. We're in the dark on so much.
Nobody's sharing
these bits and pieces here and there that aren't enough to piece together a coherent picture. And that's what we're all trying to do.
Well, you also have to understand how our governments work. Your government isn't going to tell my government what secret weapons they have. No. My government wants to go to war with you.
Governments obfuscate. That's what governments do.
Yeah.
And, we have to realize that governments obfuscate and they don't tell the truth and they have their own agenda and they're going to hide things and if they knew beyond a shadow of a doubt these were ETs, they're not going to tell us and they're going to try and work that to their own agenda, to their own purpose. And the problem is we have no global corporation. And one interesting thing that I did note is that there are some foreign countries that have started opening up their UFO files to anybody who wants to come and look at them, any researcher, and said, look, here it is. This is what we've got. Come take a peek. Mm-hmm. Does the U.S.? No. We hammer that down. We clamp that down.
Canada declassified their documents 40 years ago. I'm going through them,
and that's what disturbs me and lots of people about the U.S. government is they give us in these little dribs and drabs what they want us to have. And let's assume, Ryan, that this is absolutely 100% extraterrestrial. Let's assume that. Okay. The argument is you can't disclose that because it's going to kill energy, it's going to disrupt religion, it's going to send people into a panic. I do not buy that. I do not buy that at all. Okay. People are sturdier than that and hardier than that overall. There will be a variety of reactions if it were extraterrestrial. But overall, the churches are still going to exist. Technology is still going to exist. Most of the things we have now are still going to exist. and there will be an adaptation period. If the aliens came down and landed, if they were ETs, they got out of the craft, we have that first face-to-face communication, guess what? Giant learning curve. Just because they're way more advanced than we are they moral? Are they ethical? Are they telling us the truth? Are they here to use us? You know, what's the situation?
But or do they care? First of all,
do they care? Apparently, they don't at this point. From what we see,
if religion was so important for our survival, and they wanted to make themselves known, they will.
Exactly.
But it's us who think that religion is so important to our survival.
Right. Right.
So if it's not being released,
the problem is which religion?
Well, in general, if to us we think that our society will crumble if religion crumbles, that must mean that A, the government is controlling whatever this is, and B, the government is controlling religion. Right. And religion is needed for other things. And before they can destroy one religion, they need to introduce another. Right. So they can maintain control, and none of that, none of that has anything to do with an extraterrestrial race that could come here at any time, take over in a split second, and we'd have nothing to do with it, unless they're in cahoots and they're working together. So either it all exists, or none of it exists. So aliens either don't, if they do exist, they don't care about us, and all this stuff is just a phenomenon.
Well, you look at the experiences that people have. And it's apparent that they don't care about us, because most of the experiences that you have are not positive experiences. You got the abduction experiences.
And abduction experiences. We're also generalizing too, because there's multiple sightings from multiple cultures or multiple entities and beings, and we don't even we have to capture one.
Right.
You know, and then we could be able to characterize.
But you look at most of these experiences, and if you have an abduction experience, that's someone that's taking you against your will and doing things in violation of your personal space, your body, your will, so on and so forth. And that's most of the experiences that we seem to have.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was watching an interview with Rob Shelsky, who's a MUFON field investigator. And he said, where is that story where I'm lost in the woods at night, I'm cold, I don't have food, and here comes a UFO and shines a beam of light down and leads me safely out of the woods to safety? Where's that story? We don't have it. But we have possible ties to cattle mutilations. We have ties to abductions. We have ties to nightmares. We have ties to this. We have ties to radiation exposure. We have ties to the UFOs coming over and shutting missiles down. We have near misses in the airspaces. We have UFOs shutting down our pilots.
We have evidence that man can make machine. We have evidence that man can cover up things. We also have evidence of mind control programs.
Sure we do.
We have all this evidence to suggest and point a finger at mankind for being responsible for this program. So
I don't know.
Could it not be possible that your psychic connection is not with an extraterrestrial or angelic being, but in fact another human being somewhere else or in place in time, just a human being, still connecting mentally with a human being in another time that is able to, like us taking care of ourselves from the future? Could that be possible?
It could be possible, but I don't think it is. It just don't click. It just don't register for me.
But it can be possible at the same time.
It can be possible. I'm not discounting it, but I'm saying I don't feel like that's the situation.
No, I get it. But what I'm trying to say is, if that was possible, it would make more sense, and it would be a little bit easier to understand that we are more evolved than we're actually giving ourselves credit for.
Listen, Ryan, if we're more evolved than we're giving ourselves credit for, we're in deep trouble, son.
That's where the mind control comes in. They don't want us to be that way.
No, it ain't where the mind control comes in. Look at what we do to each other every day on this planet.
Oh, I know. That's from bad parenting. They let us free think for too long.
Yeah, well, it's from human nature. Let me tell you a story. Okay. If you've got 10 people and they're all in good health, they have everything they want and need to eat, they have enough income to do what they want to do, they all have good houses that are safe and secure, one person out of those 10 is going to look at that other 9 and go, how can I control and manipulate these rascals? How can I get what they have? And there's where our problem is. It's something inherent within us that we have to battle, that we have to deal with, that we have to work with. And that's where it gets out of control. And that's why you have $850 for a reading. And that's why you have a government that doesn't want you to know the truth. And that's why you have on and on and on and on.
So there's a pretty, yeah, we got to go back to the beginning to find out what the actual intention was. And then I blame that. That's what I said, bad parenting. We were created and then left to survive on our own.
Well, but if, bad parenting, yeah, but who created us and what created us? And then if something created us, what created that? There has to be an origin story for everything.
And that's why I said that if it is an extraterrestrial that could step in at any time and set the record straight, none of this stuff would matter if they wanted to interfere, but they don't, because they may or may, unless it's us. That's what I'm saying. This phenomenon could be just us. And I'm not saying that's what I believe. I'm just saying. Oh,
sure. I understand. But when you get there, you get into the whole science fiction, us from the future thing and all this. And it's like, how do you wrap your head around that? And how do you make it practical? And that's the thing.
How do you wrap your head around that, being an extraterrestrial from the future versus a human?
I don't look at it as being from the future. I look at it as existing here and now.
All right.
In the same time frame that we are. I think all of this is occurring right now in the same time frame that we are. I don't look at it as coming from the future and not necessarily from another dimension. I look at it as, hey, we're all in this thing simultaneously. And that's what we have to figure out.
Right on. Okay, so we're at the top of the show. Why don't you tell everybody? We made it, man. This was good. This was intense.
Hey, I enjoyed it.
Before we leave, I want you to tell everybody where to find your books, because you mentioned writing with ghosts, angels, and spirits of the dead.
Right.
You have a new book, which was called A Knock in the Attic, True Ghost Stories and Other Spine-Chilling Paranormal Adventures.
Right.
What's the title of your third book? Sorry?
The third book coming out is going to be 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities. Right. Hopefully, I'll be done with that end of the year, first part of next year. But right now, you can get either one of my books at either Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Walmart and Target. Carry them online. Any online bookseller will have them for you. Go to johnrussell.net, which is my psychic website if you want a reading, and you'll see a little graphic for each book there. And if you click it, it'll take you to that book's page that'll tell you about the book. You'll see the reviews from not only people, but editorial reviews. You can read the first chapter for free. Decide if you want to get it. And it's got links to buy it then at Amazon and all that you can click on and get it. So it's all out there for you. Anywhere you want to go get it, it's available online.
Right on. Anything else you got on that website you want anybody to know about?
That's it for right now. That should cover the bases. They can go and read all about me and find out everything they want to know, and find out all about the books. And all my media appearances are there. My client testimonials are there. Everything's there for them.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with me. Thank you, everybody who spent their time with me tonight. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. We got EA, Experiencers Anonymous, is this Saturday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. It is 2 hours. If you don't have the free link, head over to tessacan.org/EA. You can register. We'll send it to you, or just look for Experiencers Anonymous on Eventbrite. So for those of you who don't know what Experiencers Anonymous is, that's just our little meeting, gathering place that's facilitated by Chantel and sometimes Tim, to give you that place to talk about your experiences among each other and try to work with each other to understand what may or may not be happening to each other. Also, 12 p.m. tomorrow Eastern Time is our lunch special. So I will be there. The off the cuff special is going to be a big one because I have a lot of posts that I have done. We'll digest this podcast as well. Also, this is the last podcast for a couple weeks. I'm going to be taking a break. We're not going to have a podcast next week or the the week after that. I need some time to complete the 2020 Ultra Spectrum survey. I need to complete the 2020, start the 2021 as well. So I need some time away to work on that. But I am going to have some pre-recorded videos for you guys to see at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So don't worry, you won't miss out. But we won't be doing our lunchtime videos, maybe. But the members, so if you are a member of YouTube, if you're not, click the join button right now, become a member. I will be doing some bonus content for you guys while I'm away. If I have internet connection, if I don't have internet connection, I can't help you because I'm going far away. Maybe I'll bring back an ET, who knows? But so if you're a member,
like a souvenir.
Yeah, if you're a member, I'll be in contact with you. If not, then we'll see you guys when I get back, if I come back. And I think that's it. Yeah. So thanks for watching, everybody. Keep your eyes in the sky. Heed the world.
Right.
This is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, where together, my friends, we own the night. On our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a place called the SOR Sightlines Report. All of our investigations and people who inquire are turned over to TESSA, the Experiencer Support Association. Ryan Stacy and his crew, what I like about them, they're independent. They're not working for anybody, and they want answers. We want answers for our listeners and people who inquire as well about their experiences. It's a great tandem, and we love being teamed up with TESSA. If you haven't heard of us before, that's okay. We'd love to earn your listening ears. Join us 9:06 Pacific Time, 12:06 a.m. Eastern for 3 hours of live entertainment, 7 days a week.
Please stand by for further details. We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
Hello, new YouTube member. Guess what? You've just unlocked bonus content that no one else has seen before, and you get exclusive access to some neat features. If you join the Experiencers Anonymous tier, you've unlocked loyalty badges which will appear next to your name when you join us live during any of our videos. The longer you stay with us, the cooler the badge will be. Also, you get to use these cool custom emojis that we made just for you. You also get to access our private Discord chat where we can communicate all the time privately. All you have to do is email us at admin@tessacan.org. Let us know you want in on the discussion and we will send you the link directly to Discord. This tier also unlocks early access to new videos, behind the scenes and blooper footage, as well as some exclusive videos made just for members. All that for $2.99 Canadian a month. If you join the unclassified tier for $4.99 Canadian, you would get everything I just said, plus extended footage of some of our featured videos, a discount to our merch store, and so much more. If you are a member of the unclassified tier, email us at admin@tessacan.org and let us know, and we will send you a discount code for the Paranormal Hangar. All proceeds go back into the mission and help us create educational content for you and the rest of the world. Thank you for being a part of that journey. There are lots of perks, so make sure you check that out. Also, you can use this tab to share and communicate with Tessa. That's it. Unless you have a better idea. If you do, email us at admin@tessacan.org if you have any requests for videos or bonus perks or anything at all. Really, you are in charge. Don't be afraid to reach out. That's it. Thanks for your support. And if you know anyone else who may benefit, please share our channel. The more people we have, the more we can help. And thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky. Say it with me. Say it, Tim.
Eat the world.
Eat the world.